Hey there, Kelly O'Connell, author and attorney. Hope you're doing well. And I took a few days off to go to Colorado and hang out with my friend Doug, who is a philosophy professor and he's a writer. And I did a podcast with him, and I got to get that recording and stick it in here. But in any event, we talked about critical race theory. But anyway, doing a topic today on Marxist chaos theory, Biden's presidency, and unending series of catastrophes. So, I mean, nobody needs to be explained how many weird things are going on right now. And one bad thing begets another. We've got Southwest Airlines shutting down, and it was stated that the pilots and the crews coordinated to shut down the airline so that they could know that they were not going to put themselves underneath the virus mandates. Of course, the White House turned around and lied about it and said we found out why they weren't flying and it had nothing to do with the virus. So this lady, Psaki, is really a queen of liars. I've seen her lie on every potential subject. She's like some kind of a weird Sunday school teacher who always purifies everything and makes it proper so nobody gets offended. And really what she's doing is lying her ass off. And somehow, even during the worst topics, the worst experiences, she somehow tries to end up on top in terms of sanctimonious and condescending and everything. And I just find her to be an awful spokesman and really so full of lies, it's not worth talking to her or listening to her. In any event, let me get into this subject. I think this will be a fairly short podcast. I've noticed a long time ago that socialists, Marxists, leftists, progressives, throw out your favorite terms there, Marxist, communists, by the way, the Marx and Engels didn't separate or didn't differentiate between socialist and communist. There was no separation for them. There shouldn't be any for us because they're steps along the same path. But I noticed a long time ago that leftism, obviously, it breeds collapse. It breeds failure. And there's a couple of reasons for that, one of which is people who are failures, people who are not good at anything want to still have power over others. And so they end up getting appointed by communists because they're party lovers. But another reason is to put out a sense of failure, a sense of chaos and destruction and the collapse of capitalism and the failures of democracy and republicanism. Because, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of individuals who are hoping that socialism will come along and lift them out of the gutter or whatever place they think that they're at. Communism is not a road towards democracy. I don't mean to state the obvious, but Stalin's Russia, Lenin's Russia, Mao's China, those were not places where you had one person, one vote. They were not places where republicanism, rule of law, these type of things thrived. They were killed off there. So if you're willing to trade what you consider to be safety or security for getting rid of democracy, what you'll find out is you don't have either one, because a lot of people died in Russia and China and totally avoidably died. They starved to death because of government famines, or they were just slaughtered by the government because they were either in the wrong place at the wrong time, where they were deemed to be a dangerous or unwanted person, and so they were executed. So, Joe Biden now. Biden's hill of beans. Now, whether Joe Biden's theory of governance is tragic, comedic, or some odd combination, well, folks, it definitely depends upon the viewer's sense of the absurd. Well, for instance, though, would anyone be shocked if Odd Joe were a member of a cult Now I'm going to catch you off on this one. Say the ancient worship of Greek Cyamites, also known as the god of beans. I had to look pretty far for that one. At least Biden would then have an excuse for always being full of legumes, or beans, and regularly bleeding gas towards brainwashed listeners. You know what I should say? Belching gas, that sounds better. But to the contrary, Pythagoras, with his hatred of beans, would have loathed this administration. But let's not dither. Planned chaos, what is it? Biden himself must have inhaled deeply while listening to Marxists, who regularly recite such nostrums, and nostrum is a remedy that doesn't really have anything in its favor. It's failed. It's no good. Such nostrums as socialism is bound to come with the inexorability of a law of nature. That's what they believe. And I've been mentioning that in a couple of podcasts. I was mentioning to you mystical Marxism. The right elements are out there and they assemble themselves. It's kind of like evolution. Well, in fact, Marxism teaches both the idea that communism is inevitable and that it is also in need of being ushered in through strenuous revolutionary activity. In evaluating the left's planned economy, Ludwig von Mises, the great genius of market economics, wrote in Planned Chaos that leftists don't employ economics but class envy in policy analysis, and meaning to say that if they knew what economics really were, then they'd realize that what they were doing was not in any way an economics plan. So he says the interventionists do not approach the study of economic matters with scientific disinterestedness. Most of them are driven by an envious resentment against those whose incomes are larger than their own. This bias makes it impossible for them to see things as they really are. For them, the main thing is not to improve the conditions of the masses, but to harm the entrepreneurs and capitalists, even if this policy victimizes the immense majority of the people. And we see that right now, that the left had to fight for global warming. And so Biden cuts off this gas and oil pipeline, Keystone, and a lot of people don't realize is that this lady in Michigan, Woodmer, whatever her name was, she was also fighting to shut down a gas pipeline. And you might say to yourself, well, that's crazy. And then they had this colonial pipeline back east that was taken offline by sabotagers. And you're saying to yourself, why would they want, what do they gain? They gain from the sense that there is a crisis, that the country is unmanageable, that somebody else needs to take it over. Capitalism is not working, can't be trusted, and that democracy is too inept, and so we need a strong leader to come in and take over everything. And there you have Joe Biden and all of his incompetence and weakness. He walks like a mannequin. So what you end up with is failed policies, because what they're trying to do is sabotage America into socialism. And it might not make any sense, and it is a terrible failure at the box office, but the only way to understand everything that's going on is that these people enjoy misery because you're not a socialist and they are. And if you were a socialist, if you had great insight, if you were a Gnostic, so to speak, then you'd see all of the failure and suffering that came to America, and it would be because we are greedy capitalists and it needs to be shut down. So the small remnant of people out there that are true leftists, true Marxists, are thrilled. The Nancy Pelosi's out there are thrilled to see the failures, the suffering. Even if it hits indiscriminately everybody with gas spikes. What is gas up 80%? So a truly odd aspect of Biden's policies is they've all been previously tried and failed. So you name the policy that they're trying right now, and we've seen that it doesn't work. And so, as Mises wrote, no economist ever dared to assert that interventionism, which is what they want to do, they want to get involved in every industry and tell the industry what they can and can't do, and ultimately would like to be in charge of production so that they could decide how much of what is being created and who gets it. And obviously that is the very quintessence of failure, because you can't make anything if you don't know what the materials cost and how big the market is. And since we don't know what the weather is going to do next week, let alone in 2 or 3 months in the middle of winter, we don't know how many coats and galoshes to make. So, socialism is a failure on a theoretical level, but in practically speaking, it is the biggest disaster in history. So the advocates of interventionism, foremost among them the Prussian historical school and the American institutionalists, were not economists. On the contrary, in order to promote their plans, they flatly denied that there was any such thing as an economic law. In their opinion, governments are free to achieve all they aim at without being restrained by an inexorable regularity in the sequence of economic phenomena. Like the German socialist Ferdinand Lassalle, they claim that the state is a god. You might say, well, that doesn't really follow intellectually. Well, it doesn't, but you've got to think about this. These people are distracted by power. They are overwhelmed with power for a couple of reasons. And the first thing, and you can see it right now in Afghanistan, because believe it or not, Muslim political theory is based on a tyranny. That's why there's no freedom in the Middle East. So the first thing they're looking for is revenge. These people who get into office, they want revenge on Trump, obviously, but they want revenge on anybody who disagrees with them. So look at John Gruden, who was successfully running the Oakland A's, and now he's out because they found emails 10 years ago in which he denigrated women and blacks and whatever. I mean, I thought that was ridiculous. I felt sorry for the guy. I don't care what somebody said 10 years ago. And when they interviewed the players, they said the same thing. We like him. He's our coach. One guy said, I grew up under this guy. I love him. And we don't care what he said this period of time ago. So if you're going to have an infernal machine, an infernal machine kills people. If you're going to set up the society to have infernal machines in it, where they'll go into the past and everybody has something in their closet that they've done that they should be embarrassed of or would be embarrassed of now, and they drag that thing out, it's to get rid of you. And they pointed out that Gruden was not a fan of Biden's, and therefore he deserved to die. And now they can tell everybody else in the league that they've got all the emails from the leagues, and they will shoot down anybody who resists woke. Because remember, woke started in the NFL. Colin Kaepernick kneeling. So getting back to what Biden's doing, everything he touches turns to feces. So and inflation is through the roof. And here's the sad thing. Inflation is it's like termites. A termite goes into your house, breeds, creates a colony. Every day your house gets lighter and lighter as more and more of the wood is eaten up. So that's what inflation does. Biden's goal is to sow economic and societal chaos in American life. A chief means of doing so is degrading and hobbling industry. If a revolution is disorienting, socialists want to inure or make immune Americans against rejecting this. They want you to accept the pain that's already out there and then say, well, we got a revolution on our hands, let's just go with it. Further, their hatred of capitalism is exposed in many ways. Now imagine Nancy Pelosi's joy of robbing the stock market in broad daylight with her husband Paul without a gun while pretending to be a woman of the people. And they don't know how much she's worth, but I think it's between $300 and $500 million, and she was not a rich lady when she moved to San Francisco. And don't forget, all of these people, including Joe Biden and his son Hunter was trying to get billions of dollars released from Morocco. Was it Morocco, or what was the place they took over? that Muammar Gaddafi was in. And anyway, trying to get billions of dollars released back to them that were put aside because the country was taken over by rebels. So I gotta ask you something. And by the way, all of these people who are leftists think that, I mean, Nancy Pelosi's 80. How many people have you met that are 80 years old and they think they're smarter than you, faster on their feet than you are, they know more, and they're going to laugh in your face? I mean, to me, that's something a younger person does. When I see this lady laughing, she's one heartbeat away from death, and she's going up to people and laughing in their faith and just dismissing them like they're peasants. And, they're trying to pass this gigantic spending bill that's not going well, and she says it's her greatest achievement. I mean, I think her greatest achievement would be resigning right now and getting out of the way for someone who's doesn't hate America. When the news came out of Afghanistan that there were Americans trapped over there, you know what she was doing and stayed doing? She was in Northern California running fundraisers. And she didn't come back and reassemble call the house together to deal with the crisis. Why? Because that's not what she's there for. She's not there to help stranded foreign Americans. She's there to help overturn the United States into a socialist country. That's how she was raised by her dad, who was the mayor of Baltimore. So, DJT on a white horse. This all will continue until a leader comes to stand up to the Marxist left and begin to battle on behalf of the people. Now, dear friends, don't choke on your coffee. Don't be surprised if it's Donald Trump returning to the White House on a white horse. Well, there you have it. And I got a clip. I'll have it in Canada Free Press. I'll have a link to Planned Chaos. You can get a free copy of it. It's beautiful, and it's part of a bigger book. But all right, so let me get you some of your favorite weird news. All right, so first story, kind of a boring story, but I thought I'd bring it to you. A guy who jumped out of a plane and got out on the wing, and he ran out there, and he was coming from Cali, Colombia, and his name is Christian Segura. He's actually an American, and they took him into custody. It was a stunt. Who knows what the purpose was, but mom leaps 82 feet to her death in freak rope-free flying accident. And you got to see this to believe it. You can only see her run up and jump. Thrill-seeking mom of 3. And October 11th, this is reported. And this is in Kazakhstan, where things are probably a little bit different. And so she gets up, she's on this bridge or whatever it is. Let me take a look at this again. Could be even a roof. Yeah, it looks like a roof. And so the guy's hooking her up, and she just all of a sudden says, okay, and she runs and she jumps, and she's in the air, and then she's falling, and you don't see her hit, but she didn't wait until everything was tight, so she just fell down and about 82 feet and then bounced with a sickening thud. So be careful. Single moms sometimes do crazy things. Another one, another passenger, freaky passenger in flying into Los Angeles, threatened his fellow passengers when he was told to put on his COVID mask. He said, I'm going to break your neck, and I will find your name, date of birth, and address. I'll know your social security number before I get off this plane. And he said, I'm going to hunt you down to the flight attendant, and I'm going to break your neck. So that's one way to handle a mask. Teen truck driver hit 6 bicyclists in an attempt to blow exhaust on them. He was a young driver. He's 16 and maybe trying to show off or just trying to show some disrespect. And it was in Houston, and he tried to get right next to him and blow that exhaust on him, and instead he ran him over. And so he's going to jail. And that, they don't have his name because of his age. Elk roaming in Colorado. Get this, for 2 years he's roaming around with a truck tire, actually looks like a car tire around his neck. 2 years he's roamed around with it, and they finally captured him and freed him of the obstruction. He's 4.5-year-old, 600-pound bull elk, spotted near Pine Junction, southwest of Denver. And they had to cut off his antlers because they couldn't cut through the steel band of the tire, and they would have preferred to cut off the tire. But anyway, even without his horns, he's got to feel a lot better. And all right, so one more here. NASA reports multiple fireballs hurtling through the sky over the U.S. Largest number of eyewitness accounts stem from an event that occurred around 7:40 p.m. ET on Friday. And this is from September 30th, 2021. So off the North Carolina coast, and they've got views of it. At least 5 fireballs were reported, and the reports came from Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. My question for you is, do you believe in UFOs? And therefore, another question comes up. Do you believe in aliens flying into Earth, throwing stuff out? Maybe it was a beer can they threw out the window. But the meteor, it turned out to be a meteor. It disintegrated after traveling 26 miles through the Earth's upper atmosphere and was going 32,000 miles per hour. And all I can say is I hope it was wearing a seatbelt when it hit the atmosphere. But anyway, okay, so thank you for tuning in. And I want to ask you if you can put down in the comments, by the way, do for a Knockout Radio, put in a comment or two, add my subscribe, etc. But I want to ask you, what do you think is going to happen in the next year? And I probably should do an entire show on that and just pick through people's comments. Anyway, Kelly O'Connell, and it's great hanging out with you. The high spot of my whole day is doing the show with you. So have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.